What's up, everybody? It's Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast, and my wife and I just got done watching Squid Game on Netflix. And as is the case with literally any movie or TV show we've ever discussed on this channel, I highly don't recommend watching it or anything. See what I did there? Just playing it safe. So if you watch it, let that be on your head, because I told you not to. No, it was an interesting show. I mean, it was violent. It was like RoboCop level, silly, over-the-top, blood violent. But they were saying something, and it was interesting, and it definitely got into the deep places of the soul and human life and why it's valuable and what is the point of us and what's the point of our relationships with others and all kinds of big questions. I liked it. It felt like a break from a lot of the lecturing and pandering that you seem to see in entertainment anymore. It's just a pity that art increasingly feels entirely co-opted by our dumb political fights that I would just love a break from time to time. And Squid Game, as violent and horrifying as it was, it gave me that. So we enjoyed it. But you get to the end of a show like that has a little bit of a feel like that, and you're like, wow, that was dark. That was weird. It had some silver lining. What do I do with this? What was going on there? And so you go to YouTube and you watch a bunch of the different videos, and there are a couple of those that we came across where the whole point of the video is a retrospective on what you just saw. And it's like, no, look, everything that explains what was going on was right in front of you the whole time. If you just look at this clue and this clue and this clue, the whole thing comes into focus. And I was like, well, I don't know about, oh, wow, yeah, you're absolutely right. There it is right there. How did I miss that? That's a really good take. Good job, YouTube internet person. Likewise, in Matthew chapter 22, we have got a situation where a whole lot of quote-unquote seasons of the Bible have already come and gone. People have been looking at the same document for a really long time, and some people who've spent a ton of time staring at it have come to confront Jesus with a little parable of their own about a family plagued with the obligations that come with the tradition of levirate marriage. You got a lady in this scenario that they're throwing out, that they're passing off as though it actually happened. I think everybody had to have known this was just a made-up story. But these guys tell the story of a lady who just keeps marrying brothers, and the brothers keep dying, and the next brother has to redeem the marriage, and so on and so forth. And then the trick question at the end that they put to Jesus is, well, who's she going to be married to in the resurrection? And like they care about that. They're trying to make a mockery of the idea that there is some sort of life after death. Maybe at best, the Sadducees, the people who are approaching Jesus with this, believed that there was some extension of physical life that looked more or less just like what we were already doing somehow. A lot of that information is lost to history, so we don't know exactly how they imagined things went on or what the point of all of this was beyond just this lifetime. But surely they did not believe in resurrection at all in the sense that Jesus was describing resurrection, or that Christians or even the Pharisees believed in resurrection. And so they come to him with this question, and in Jesus' brilliant answer, and using a similar technique to what this YouTuber did with Squid Game, which is to go back to one pivotal point and be like, no, look at this point right here. It answers the question. Jesus is going to go back to a previous point in the text, a text that everybody agrees on, and say, no, look at this one thing that we all agree on. The answer is right there to your question, and you guys really should have known that. So here's his answer. Jesus replied, Matthew 22:29, "You're in error because you don't know the scriptures or the power of God. At the resurrection, people will neither marry nor be given in marriage. They'll be like the angels in heaven. But about the resurrection of the dead, have you not read what God said to you? I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. He's not the God of the dead, but the God of the living." When the crowds heard this, they were astonished at his teaching. Now, at this point, maybe you're like, did I just space off for a minute? Because that didn't seem that brilliant to me. And Matt, you were all acting like it was really, really smart. And then you read it and like, I guess I don't get it. No, you probably weren't spacing off. On the first pass, there's a lot going on there. And unless you're a Sadducee, this answer wasn't really directed at you anyway. So it does take a bit to peel back the layers of the onion here. Part one of his answer is that he just calls them out. Here's the thesis. You are in error, which is kind of awesome because they didn't really come to him with an assertion. They came to him with just a completely innocent parable. Just here's a story. Well, what do we do with this? And his response to their story is, you're wrong. So he clearly sees what they're trying to pull here and knows exactly what the conclusion they're trying to force him to is, and just calls it out. You're wrong, and you're wrong for two reasons. One, you don't understand the document that is the founding document of your thing, and supposedly the thing on which you base all of your reputation. You don't understand the scriptures. And two, you don't understand the deity you claim to worship, who you acknowledge is behind the scriptures. So you don't know the holy text, and you don't know the God at the center of all of the things you claim are so important. So he's kind of thrown down the gauntlet here, and if he doesn't back this up, he's going to look like a complete clown. Let's break down the rest and see how well it goes. At the resurrection, people will neither marry nor be given in marriage. They will be like the angels in heaven. Well, this is interesting because the first time I was really carefully looking at this passage, I remember thinking, like, oh, he's saying that so matter of fact. He's probably referencing something about what happens in the afterlife and how marriage works or something that's like in the Bible that everybody would agree on. But nope, I don't think he is. I think he's just saying this is how it's going to be, which is really interesting because this makes it one of those moments where Jesus flexes his knowledge of how the things actually are. And a lot of the time we see him doing what he's going to do here in a minute, which is interacting with the text, the agreed upon authoritative writings, and then he extrapolates that out into an interpretation that makes more sense than the interpretation that is common in the day or that his opponents had come to him with. And then from there, sometimes he will go out into a broader teaching and be like, it's like this. I think a prime example of this would be the Matthew 5 material, where he finishes saying that he hasn't come to abolish the law and the prophets, but to fulfill them. And then he talks about how you get into this awesome kingdom he just described in the Beatitudes. And he's like, well, your righteousness would have to surpass that of the Pharisees and the Sadducees to get into that. And then everybody's probably feeling confusion and despair, like how would that work? And then he goes on to start to flesh out the idea, but he does so with this series of statements. You've heard it said from long ago that, like, yeah, don't murder, don't commit adultery, eye for an eye, all of this different stuff. But I tell you, well, this is the formula that we see most often from Jesus right here. It's a coupling of here's stuff from the text, and now here is authoritative teaching that goes beyond that or fulfills that or completes that because he's God in the flesh. He's the Messiah. He's the Son of God, the individual who, when he got baptized, the Holy Spirit descended on him like a dove, and the heavens parted, and the voice of God the Father said, that's my Son in whom I'm well pleased. Listen to him. He's not just another teacher or a prophet. He holds himself out from the beginning as being something much more authoritative. So in this example, we really are seeing the same style of teaching that we've been getting from Jesus. It's just flip-flopped. He leads with the authoritative statement that goes beyond the other stuff, which is marriage is not what you all are picturing that it's going to be like. And I'm guessing that probably the common thought of the day was something that looks more like some Restorationist era 19th century religions that have a lot in common with Christianity, that have some very elaborate teachings regarding marriage and the afterlife and how all of those things work. Maybe that's what a lot of people thought. Maybe that's kind of how the folk religion thing had evolved at the time. But Jesus very clearly says, no, it's not going to work that way. So it's almost like these Sadducees come to him and they're like, well, obviously this is how marriage is going to be because that's what a lot of people think. And obviously you must think that too because you're not part of our tribe. So we're going to just ascribe those understandings of marriage and the afterlife to you. And now we've got you in a real pinch here. And that causes him to be like, all right, well, let me pull back the curtain a little bit on how this works. And again, he's not referencing any Bible passage or previous teaching. He's like, that's just isn't how marriage is going to occur in the afterlife. At the resurrection, people will neither marry nor be given in marriage. They will be like the angels in heaven. Now, look, I just alluded to it a second ago with the marriage thing, but also with the angels thing here. There are lots of groups that have many things in common with Christianity who teach that somehow people become angels or even become miniature deities or even full-fledged deities. Most of these groups are 19th century traditions that draw on some individual apostle who brings with him teachings from beyond the Bible. If you happen to identify as a member of one of those groups, I am not trying to pick a fight with you here. Rather, I am just trying to draw the distinction between some of those takes and what we're getting from the text of the full-fledged New Testament here. The New Testament teaches that there's some kind of resurrection of the body and that somehow there is a transformed state of people who are in the kingdom in eternity. I really don't know or totally get everything about what this looks like, other than to say Jesus clearly teaches that there is life after death, that there is resurrection to some sort of glory, some sort of reunited fellowship with the Father in the eternal kingdom of heaven. He clearly teaches that earthly marriage does not work the same way there. I don't see anything here to indicate that he's teaching some kind of celestial divorce that has to occur either, where there's a falling out between spouses. But it would seem that the necessities that marriage as an institution meets are addressed more completely and in other ways in eternity, in the kingdom of heaven. The teaching of the text in this passage and moving forward is that marriage is something that happens in this physical world, that the afterlife is definitely a thing, that restored complete fellowship with God in the eternal kingdom of heaven is a thing, that we have responsibility and roles there in some sort of transformed body, but not that we become angels or deities, but that people continue to be people made in the image of God, but somehow glorified and completed and stripped of the imperfection that comes along with being a part of a fallen world, subject to the rules of nature, subject to entropy. There's no way we're going to get through all of this in one episode, so we're going to do the thing again where we split it in two. We're going to pick it up right where we left off tomorrow. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour Podcast. Let's do this again soon.